Did you know that almost all relapses and unwanted habits or addictive behaviours are preceded by an urge? Now, some people call this a craving or temptation, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to call it an urge. My name is Dr. David McLaughlan. I'm a consultant psychiatrist, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the anatomy of what an urge looks like. And I'm also going to talk about how you can surf the urge. And it'll make sense as we go through the video why I call it surfing. So what is the anatomy of an urge? So in your head, I want you to imagine a wave. And a wave has a very specific shape, doesn't it? So it's something that kind of grows up to a crest and then it falls again. And that's very much what an urge or a craving or the sensation of temptation is like. It's something that it starts off quite small and you might not even notice it, and then it gradually grows, and you might associate it with a physical sensation, you might associate it with certain thoughts or also certain emotions, but it's something that starts off quite small and it can creep up in you, or maybe it happens very quickly, but it's a sensation that it grows and then it reaches a peak before it gradually falls again. Now, the reason why I'm telling you about this is because very often when people relapse to these unwanted, harmful habits or addictive behaviors, it's because they forget that the anatomy of the urge, it's temporary. And often people, they allow this wave of temptation to crash over them, and then they succumb to the unwanted habit or behavior. So I have 3 tips for you in how you can surf that urge. So the first thing to remember is that on average, an urge will last for 5 to 15 minutes. I've talked about this metaphor of the wave and it growing to the crest and then falling again, but sometimes I also talk about an urge being a bit like a cloud in the sky. And clouds, they come and go, they move, they're not static, they're transient visitors, a bit like any unwelcome emotion. And that's the same is true of urges. They come and they go, a bit like clouds, they're just visitors. So that's one thing to remember. This is a temporary state. It's not always going to be there. You can surf that urge and get to the other side. My second tip for surfing the urge is to actually accept that you're having these thoughts and feelings, not to give yourself a hard time, not to fight it too much, but just to notice and accept that you're having these feelings and thoughts, and it's okay. And I think that makes it much easier for you to then address it rather than it feeling really overwhelming or feeling guilty or feeling ashamed of having urges, temptations, or cravings, because you're human. And my third tip for surfing the urge is to distract yourself. Because remember I said most urges, they're temporary, they last for 5 to 10 minutes. So if you can distract yourself for long enough, there's a good chance that that urge will have passed and it'll have gone, and the need or the sensation to act out that habit or behavior, it'll have gone. So distract yourself. Now, I know that's easier said than done, but I'm going to give you a bit more advice as well, because there's certain types of distractions are better than others. The most successful distractions are the ones that require you to actively engage in the activity. So that's as opposed to, say, a passive distraction. So for example, a passive distraction might be listening to a podcast, listening to music, watching television. You're a very passive participant in that activity. And for some people that works, and that's great. But my advice would be try experimenting with different activities that require active participation. So for example, riding a bike, playing the piano or playing the guitar, having a conversation, doing something that requires you to be actively engaged, and that way you're fully absorbed, fully consumed in that activity, and it's much, much harder to be distracted and for your attention to be stolen away back to the craving or the urge. So I hope that's been helpful. As a quick reminder, 3 top tips for surfing the urge. 1, remember it's only temporary. 2, don't give yourself a hard time, accept that you're having this experience and these feelings. And then 3, experiment with different types of distractions, and the active participation activities are the ones that are going to be most successful. If you enjoyed this content, please give us a like. It helps us to share this content with other people who might need it. And if you want to receive more similar content to this, please subscribe.